Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another production from the Cross Platform Baseball League. It's our weekly roundup, week two edition here on this Wednesday. Excited to bring you all the action from everything that's happened across all three leagues. And joining me tonight in the weekly roundup booth, our AAA aficionado, the Mystery Man himself. Mystery Man, welcome in. How you doing tonight?
Really good, man. This XBL just completely hopping lately, and love to see the activity. Some of the scores that have rolled in have been completely off the wall. We've got highlights. We've got basically everything tonight.
Yeah, as you said, the fur has been flying. All three leagues have had upsets, tons of insane score lines, high score lines, low score lines, long score lines, short score lines, just everything in between, really, in every single facet of the game. Tons of great plays for us to go over tonight. Some box scores as well to go over tonight, and of course our rankings, where that's where the parking lot brawl is really starting to shake out amongst every single league, especially in the XBL as you stated and the AAA right now. And Double A really taking shape with a lot of games being played in that league. It's nice to see Double A as active as it's been. Probably the most active it's been in its short history. So exciting stuff tonight. We're not going to waste too much more time and jump right into our first set of rankings here in the Double A. We have rounding us out. We got Brandini, who's 1-11, played a lot of games early on. Followed by the Diamond Hogs and Punt Vanderlift, and then Joey and his bunnies, who were off to a rough start but are starting to come around.
Yeah, the bunnies are underrated. Joey can really play when he wants to. Been a bit of a tough row here. I think maybe a little bit out of practice, but has rounded up a couple wins. Just got steamrolled by Snowbird tonight, but that's not entirely surprising the way she's been playing. But still, the bunnies not necessarily done. I think the bunnies' offense is when kicked in can deal with pretty much anybody except that right at the very top.
Yeah, that's for sure. Joey's been known to play some close games, but it's all about the scoring, for him for sure. And he's picked it up, as we said, late. So we're going to be interested to see, especially from these three players. I think we saw a recent win out of the Diamond Hogs as well from Punt Vanderlift. So a couple rookies in here with a couple of their first wins under the belt, and then Joey looking to really get his season moving in a better direction than it started, taking on a lot of teams early. A lot of strong teams early, too, as you see the strength of schedule down here, 1 and 4, respectively, for these two. We'll keep sliding on up to our tie at number 9, followed by 11 and 12. We've got the Tropics and White Meat 90210, just above 500, followed by Noogle the Noble, who picked up his first win recently against the Mythics, and Bald Baseball Dad and his Stranger Things, also off to a rough start, but scoring some more runs as of late.
Yeah, Stranger Things is kind of a strange thing from the standpoint. Seems to have some talent. Um, has struggled in a lot of games, but I think can definitely deal with a lot of the players here in Double A. Noogle, I had already said was underrated. Definitely somebody to keep an eye on. And then the Miami Tropics have pulled off a couple of big upsets just this last week. So for sure, don't sleep on White Meat there.
Yeah, no one you can really sleep on when it comes to anyone in any league, but really this Double A in the past couple weeks has shown even the players at the bottom will play some really close 2-1, 3-1, 1-0 games with some of these teams at the top. So watch out who's going to snipe wins off you, especially when it comes around to round robin and playoff time. I think once everybody's really loosened up and warmed up all across the table, that's when the excitement's going to hit fever pitch, you'd have to think, in the Double A. Moving on up to rank 7, 8, and 9. A nice little movement here for the Mud Dogs, or they stayed at 9. They're still tied. And then we've got the 6-7 MC Vibraphone and the Mythosaurs and Mr. Clutch. Everyone here actually taking a bit of a dip. Interesting, with the wins under their belt.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting crew here in the middle. The Mythosaurs were kind of rubbing almost all the way up to maybe possibly even the 3 spot, but took a couple of tough losses against Sonko. The Soundco, his pitching is so brutal. I mean, I think you go in thinking, oh, I'm going to have to deal with the pitching, but it's worse than you think. And even though the scoring isn't there, the Mud Dogs can play with people. Uh, you know, anywhere in double A and can be competitive when they're dealing. And then I think Vibraphone just so streaky, kind of hard to predict.
The thing I've come to note here about Sonko is when you're looking at a lot of these other players with, 5+ losses, picking up some of the tougher L's against some of the top tier teams, they're not playing them as close as Sonko is. I mean, look at the differential between his runs scored and his runs allowed. It's half a point. So he keeps games as close as anybody, probably across all 3 leagues. This is a person you have to watch out for.
No doubt.
We're going to move on up to 4, 5, and 6. The heavy hitters of the Double A start to show up here as No Swat and his Jawas making a name for themselves, followed by Runner, who scores so many runs that his Envoy are something to be envious of. And then we'll follow that up with Snowbird and the Black Roses, also in, I believe, the 3rd season in Double A for Snowbird. So really coming into their own. She is crushing the ball, 33 home runs.
Yeah, and this is I'm actually just pulling this out right now, but Runner and Snowbird are really similar.
Mm-hmm.
And if you actually look at those runs scored, Snowbird has even more. These are offensive players. These are players that are hitting at probably an upper AAA level, slightly upper, at least middle. But the pitching sometimes can lack a little bit. And then Jawas is a little bit more balanced. I do think that the Jawas are all three of these are a potential contender, but I think Jawas are a little bit more rounded.
Yeah, you have to think as you go up the board, that's really where the pitching starts to tighten up, and that's what really sets apart, some of these top 3, top 4 Double A teams from the rest of the pack. So if Runner and Snowbird, going into the playoff hunt can tighten up those runs allowed, that's where the real danger is. I mean, look at the runs scored. That's a train you can't stop. So we're looking at the top 3 here in our Double A. Speaking of trains you can't stop, you've got M. Barry and his 15.88 runs scored per 9 in the number 3 spot, surprisingly enough. We've got God's Unicorn making an appearance at number 2, and that little jump up, and then jumping into the number 1 spot, Burning Ice and Gex, player who's basically almost done his season already, and he's really shown him stuff, showing almost Von Asen level pitching at 1.94 runs allowed per 9.
Yeah, if we're just going to talk about offense, we can talk about M. Barry all day. I really don't think M. Barry's pitching is that bad. Unfortunately, the Double A can hit. I mean, you got Snowbird in there, you've got Runner in there, obviously Ice. Unicorn's not as much of a hitter. Unicorn is going to just absolutely grind you to death, kind of like Sonko. But M. Barry was running all over Double A until he started running into some pitchers. So it is tough to face. I'll be the first to say I can't hit good pitchers. I can hit medium pitchers, but the upper level, it really gets tough.
Yeah, these 3 all can hit, as we stated, but it's all about separating themselves and being able to hit that good pitching where it's going to make all the difference. And yeah, you said it. M. Barry ran into a little bit of a train. He played the Unicorns up above him, who swept them, and also lost to Runner in some very, very intense games. We're going to get into one of those later on. But yeah, some heavy hitting here all across the Double A, really. Double A is an insane, I don't want to call it a conundrum in and of itself, but the amount of offense that can be put out and just the sheer almost ignorant lack of pitching that occurs at times is amazing, and it makes for some really awesome and insane stat lines. We're going to go move on into AAA, where things are a little bit more spicy, and this really, really big group rounding us out at the bottom right now are the Double Bogey Boys and FDZ Guy. He hasn't been seen nor heard of in a little while, so we'll have to check on him again in next week's rankings. Following him up are Under the Bus and the Cuddly Otters. He's 1-13 right now. Rough start for old Bus.
Yeah, this is a tribute to how strong AAA is. DBB should, based on talent, be at least top 10. And then Bus, he doesn't play as much as he would like to. But Bus is extremely dangerous. I just played him a set over the weekend, and I was literally just white knuckled getting through those games and was able to eke out a couple of relatively high scoring games. So Bus is probably should have about 5 wins right now, but lost a couple of close, at least a couple of close ones.
Yeah, victim of the close game is Bust, but that's what happens when you keep them as close as he can. So we'll see if that luck starts to turn. Remember, AA's got themselves, or AAA's got themselves about a 50-game season, so he's only 14 into it. A long way to go for all of us here in this big league. Heading up the board where it ranks 22, 23, and 24. Some of AAA's former top talent down here in these rankings, in the former Blue Panther and Big George. Surprising from them, but the run scoring for both of them really has not been there, under 2 runs per game. And sandwiched in between them is rookie Adam Lynch, who has, I believe, been on a vacation, so looking to come back into things after picking up his first couple wins in that first week. We did touch on Adam Lynch last week a little bit.
Yeah, George is going to get going at some point. I mean, he's just way too good to be hovering in the bottom third. Hasn't gotten the offense going for, I don't really understand why. Has had some extremely good pitching games, so we'll see how eventually George is going to at least move closer to the middle. As far as Adam, got some good wins, or at least a win there that kind of got him going off the schneid after a really slow start. I don't know too much about Adam, but seems to have a good attitude, and I think will eventually get going just from experience. And then Panther's a really good player, having some difficulty with the console, but could find his way. Certainly has the pedigree.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's pedigree abound here in this group, so we'll see where the real finish is for these candidates when it all shakes out in this extremely crowded AAA. I mean, calling it now, this is a league that you love to power rank because there is so much movement and changes that are going to occur and can occur over the course of this thing. Move on now to 19, 20, and 21. We got Tezzy and the Heavy Hitters, followed by Dynasty and his Tyranics, and then Albrat and the Palm Beach Pirates. All players that can pick up their fair share of wins.
Yeah, Albrat's a pretty tough pitcher. I just lost Albrat. I'm really shocked Albrat is this low. I kind of had Albrat in my mind about the same as Spliffstar. Hasn't performed as well, but is a good player. Dynasty is a dangerous player that has a few weaknesses, mostly due to not having much experience with PvP. So that's just going to be get this is a first season learning things. And then we know Tezzy's extremely dangerous. I split with Tezzy, and I was pretty happy with that. So, Tezzy's going to be Tezzy.
Yeah, Tezzy going to be Tezzy, but that means he's definitely going to sneak up on you when you least expect it. When you're not expecting that set, you got to squeeze in towards the tail end of the season for sure. So we'll see how he shakes out. Something to highlight too, like you said, some PvP introduction going on, I believe, for Dynasty, and in the form of 213 strikeouts. 11.3 per 9 is his current rate, so something he's going to want to tighten up. And if he does, that runs scored per 9 should make a big jump and will make a big difference. You got to make contact with the ball to get anywhere going first and foremost.
Yep.
We'll move on up to 16, 17, and 18. We have some familiar faces in here, lots of veterans in the form of Rise and Fall, Behagen, and Diesel, all players that you would expect to be higher up this board, but it just speaks to the talent that is stacked up there right now. And these 3 players off to some somewhat slow starts, all hovering right about 500.
Yeah, now we're getting into kind of an area where, just straight up, nobody wants to play any of these people. For that to be ranked 16, 17, 18 is kind of ridiculous. But Hikers gave you a scare there. Pirates have been basically hanging their hat on upsets from seasons ago. And then I think Nanamo is kind of disappointing so far, but has had some pretty big wins. And certainly, if Nanamo puts their nose to the grindstone, can probably play in the top 10.
Yeah, you'd have to think. I mean, looking at both him and Rise and Fall, both players that are, less than a point apart in runs scored per nine and runs allowed per nine, just on the flip side from each other. Speaking to Rise and Fall being that pitcher that we know, playing that close game, and then B. Hagen, the hitting is there. And if the hitting is there, he's going to start bringing in the bullpen early in these games, and it's going to be over for you fast. So watch out for the megafauna if B. Hagen starts to get on his roll. It looks like he's been starting to warm up definitely as of late. And like you said, D-Sil giving a lot of scares around this league, playing a lot of really close games, bringing people into Shaka, making them play his game at his pace, something that he's always excelled at. So you'd have to think all three of these players can go anywhere on this board as the next few weeks shake out. There's a lot of games to be had and a lot of ground to be made up. We'll move on to 13, 14, and 15. Another familiar face in the form of Alec, former XBL World Series champion. Remember that. Now getting rolling here in the AAA. He's got himself up to 7-9. Eduardo at a stout 11-11 here at rank 14, dropping from number 6. Really interesting to see that big drop from Ed. And then the Patty's Pub and Spliff Star up here at 13 from rank 15. He's also approaching 500 and has a lot of games under his belt in this AAA season. He's played as close as anybody with that. Less than 0.2 differential in runs scored and runs allowed per nine. Can you believe that, Mystery Man?
Not really. Well, yeah, I can because I played him in the preseason. But other than that, I wouldn't believe it. Absolutely brutal. Patty's Pub. I mean, if you score 3 runs, you need to win that game against Patty's Pub. The greats completely owned me over the weekend. And that was with me not taking them lightly despite having no wins coming into that series. So the greats can definitely play. And then Eddie, I actually had a really good game against Eddie. Just everything clicked for me. Eddie's been sinking fast. But Eddie is another one of those people, like actually, that was one of the people I really didn't want to play.
I can't believe I highlighted the fact that Spliff Star is as close in runs scored and runs allowed per nine, and I did not even think to highlight the fact that Eduardo, being at 11-11, has the exact same runs allowed per nine and runs scored per nine, and batting average against and batting average for is 1 point apart. He's given up 15 home runs. He's given up, or 11 home runs. He's hit 15. I mean, everything is like literally within 10 points of each other. This is insane. He's probably got 30 walks on the season if that's not listed here. I mean, I've never seen anything as 500 as Eduardo is right now. Let's see if he can swing that in the right direction.
That's hilarious.
That's honestly, someone call Guinness Book of World Records. I've never seen anything like that. We'll move on up to 10, 11, and 12. Here you have a nice appearance here in the top 10 for Heisman 3000. This is a player that comes up out of nowhere and wins some really big games, and he's showing some huge improvement. Following him up is yourself, Mystery Man, here at a 12-9 record, moving on up just a point from number 12, swapping spots with Natron and the Porgs. Natron, remember, a former AA player where he scored tons of runs, still scoring a lot in the AAA, but having a bit of trouble putting a lid on it from the other teams. That's making the big difference for him.
Yeah, that's the only thing. I had the Porgs, I think, possibly in the top 6 or 7. Obviously can score. The pitching's going to have to get nailed down a little bit. But like you said, that usually is easier to figure out than if you can't hit. So I'm still pretty high on the Porgs. I'm not at all surprised about the Stars. This is kind of, I didn't expect me in there really, but to have the Stars in the top 10 is lower top 10 doesn't totally surprise me. Moving to PC, and then just looking at myself, I think it's been a great season so far. Strength of schedule isn't really that great, but at the same time, I split pretty much everybody who's above me. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot, with your strength schedule being where it's at, that means you've got some good, good teams to play, and you play those players pick up those wins, that signs off on your season in a very nice manner. I think splits against some more of these top 5, top 4 teams will really signify where you're at in this AAA season. And like we've said many times, in a crowded field where I think just making a strong run at a solid playoff seed where you get your own fair share of home games is probably everybody's goal. And you don't even really want to think beyond that at this point, because even the first round matchups are going to be insane in this crew. Remember, people are going to be missing the playoffs in the AAA this time around, so we're going to be looking at a cutoff and talking about a cutoff here in weekly roundups to come. As Mystery Man said, we're breaking into the top 10 now at 7, 8, and 9. It's Finite Provision in the Minors moving up a spot, followed by Rick's and the Sunflowers, who's moved up 2 spots. Rick's jumping out to a solid start to this season, followed by Fireball Max and the Miami Knights sitting at number 9, just where he was last week. Interesting to see where Max is, considering the past few seasons in AAA where he's definitely dominated at the plate.
Yeah, Miami Knights underachieving at rank number 9 in a brutal AAA. So that kind of tells you right there that this is somebody to watch. Rix is kind of like Heisman. This is a player that we're not exactly sure what we have here, but has played really well so far and could possibly even move up. And then Finite is really tough. I played Finite, and I think I snuck out game number 1. I just kind of had things working for me. And then game 2, he just pretty much brutalized me. So wasn't that surprised. I know what Finite can do. But Finite has some potential to definitely move up the ranks here.
Yeah, for sure. I split him the same in the past week, and one game was a very close 1-run win by him, and then offense broke open for me in the second one. But Finite and I have played some all-time games. He's been a part of some definite all-time games across 2 leagues now in the XBL and AAA, and he had another one that we'll probably bring up in the box scores next week. Most recently against Black Coffee, that people are definitely going to be excited about. So yeah, Finite knows how to grind him out, and he'll surprise you with that offense and really steamroll you after a while. Like you said,
he will. He definitely will.
Yeah, he's a former XBL World Series champion nonetheless. So a lot of pedigree there. And Ricks, only was with us for 1 season in the past, but showing his stuff, coming in quietly, but really doing their business. And like you said, Max right now underachieving a little bit. This is a really interesting group. All players that could easily jump into the top 5, if things continue to go well and some things go awry for players up here that we're about to talk about. And speaking of, we'll look at 4, 5, and 6. It's Merge Drone and the Swordfish moving from AAA's rank number 1 to number 4. Followed up by that One Boy and the Bombers moving from number 7 up to number 5. Big movement there for One Boy into the top 5. And then myself and the Motor Sox sliding a bit out of the top 5 to rank 6, but having some fun with it, still hitting some dingers.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the top 3, really. I mean, you got a Mers who was probably number 1 less than 5 days ago. Great pitcher. The offense hasn't really been fantastic, but I think Mers is kind of one of those deep playoff teams. I can't really see taking him out in an early playoff round. Yourself, obviously, a ton of experience. I would assume leading the league in home runs. Really, you kind of use the same team as far as you're kind of like me, like you know your own players, which is I actually think is underrated. And then One Boy being out of the top 3 is that's just yeah, he's really talented.
Yeah, look at the 10.76 runs scored per 9. The rookie definitely making some huge impressions here in the XBL AAA. You'd have to think he picks up some more big wins. He's 9 games above 500. He'll be in that top 3 conversation for sure in the coming weeks. I mean, I have to wonder who's behind the curtain here. I can't even remember what other teams
I'm wondering
we have
who's
left.
over there too.
Yeah, you go through so many teams here in the AAA, you start to forget who's left. And now we'll look at 1, 2, and 3. Let's get surprised here in Mystery Man. It is Mush and the Champs holding steady, actually moving up from number 2 to number 1. And then we have a tie at rank 2 between Black Coffee and just No Name. No Name quietly at 10-2, you'd have to say. Starting the season a bit late, but damn, he's doing his thing. Batters average against under 200.
Yeah, the only tiny knock on Mush is strength of schedule, but because the league is so flat, it doesn't really mean that much, especially if you've shown that you can beat some of the top players, which Mush for sure has. A lot of respect for Coffee, and I think warranted. Just so methodical and should for sure be in the top 5. And just beat some good players. So I mean, yeah, and it's been in the finals in AAA. On top of that, I had the Base Bandits number 2. I think that runs against is just absurd. I don't know if that's fluky. I don't mean, it's obviously not fluky from the standpoint he has a couple of on Asins, but it doesn't seem like the Base Bandits have been as active as normal. So the base bandits might be a little bit of one to watch. Is which direction do they go?
For sure, you know, you have to think of a rust factor if No Name's not able to stay hot. But it's really just, we know he knows Shaka probably better than anybody else who's ever set foot in that stadium. The man lives and breathes Shaka Sports Turf. He's built his entire team and his entire play style around losing the away game and winning the game at home. I mean, it's truly an amazing dedication that you see from him. And like you said about Black Coffee, you know, a player that has picked up some big wins, getting a lot of respect here at number 2, I think well warranted, because just the ability to break games open and score is what can set Coffee apart at times. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if another deep playoff run is in his nature. And Motion the Champs, you know, like you said, I believe a former Federal League stout player, and coming in here, you know, not allowing a lot of runs and just scoring, playing, you know, big games against big players, winning them. Only 2 losses to his name right now, but you said strength of schedule could be a factor. Going to be interesting to see where that number 1 takes Mr. Mush, but really an impressive and interesting player here in his rookie season. So this AAA, man, I love talking about it. I love looking at it. I mean, there's so much up and down across it that you can really pick apart.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, I mean, I haven't played any of those top 3, and I don't want to play them.
Yeah, by no means, for sure. It's gonna be some of the highlight games of this season as all those teams face off. We'll move on now to the prime time, the big time, the XBL. We're looking at the bottom of our XBL power rankings currently. It's Dark Raider in his Club de Baseball, picking up his first couple wins as of recently. At 2-14, you know, still just trying to find his feet, trying to really up that runs scored per 9. He's having a really tough time offensively. Bice not played a game at this time. Not really sure where he's at. Not expecting personally at this time to see much movement from him. Tied with Chronic Lies and the Femme Fatales, who have been away for a little bit as well, I believe, scoring less than 1 run per 9. All 3 of these teams looking to get something going. I mean, Bice wants to start his game. He can't even connect to an online match.
Yeah, government, that's just kind of a placeholder. Clearly not at this level as far as talent would be in the top 10.
Yeah.
Femme Fatales, probably more of a AAA player, only because of perhaps a little bit of lack of activity, but certainly extremely has proven a lot over the years. And then Dark Raider, I think I had a spot higher, pulled off some pretty nice wins this last week.
Yeah, definitely. His season's starting to get going. You know, he's playing his brand of baseball, which we know is the close game with the solo shot, and you know, picking up the run when he needs it and keeping you down and into the late game. So we'll see if more fortune comes Dark Raiders way. Excuse me, I cannot talk tonight. We're moving on to 16, 17, and 18. We got Webb in the Melonheads down here at 16. Interesting spot for Webb. He did not gain any games in week 2, so kind of a placeholder spot for him this week. Followed by Blows the Save and Stabbing Crabs. Also hasn't been seen since the match of the week against Ox at the end of last week. And Zlatanimal and the Hungry Harambinos at rank number 18. He just recently played in match of the week against Dark Raider. I believe that was where Raider picked up his first W. All of these players looking to again get things started. This bottom of the XBL has a little bit of rolling on forward to do.
Yeah, such an epic game between Zlat and Dark Raider. I mean, that was just they had a series that was pretty wild. Just the pitching and everything was crazy to see. Um, Zlat, I thought was going to hit much better than he has talent. Um, I'm I've played Zlat, and I really thought Zlat was going to be closer to the middle. So I'm not sure the issue there, but it is a tough field. Um, Stabbing Crab's kind of the same. I know Ox was really afraid to play Stabbing Crabs, and I would have been the same way. Won AAA last season, seemed to be really on a nice trend, and maybe got into SMB4 a little bit late. So that could be the issue there, but has a lot of talent.
Yeah,
And
just
then Webb, I think maybe just a little bit of inactivity. I mean, obviously Webb shouldn't be at 15 or 16 or whatever.
yeah, interesting to see. You see a big differential in runs allowed and runs scored per nine for these teams down here. All players that you would expect more from, especially early on, but just have not gotten it going. The Harambinos most recently gaining any results, so we'll see if these players have a better fortune in week 3. We'll move on up to 13, 14, and 15. It's Ox moving from 16 to 13, making a 3-place move, and he's at 500 now, followed by Palmav and the Kestals, the rookie. There was some favor for Palmav going into things last week, but it seems to have kind of cooled off a bit. And then Flash and his Flashertons dropping 3 spots. It has not looked good for the old commish, the former 3-time champion.
Yeah, I think Flash is mostly internet issues. Flash would probably be at least in the middle. Elmav, I think, has turned out a little bit more of a pitcher only than we thought. Really good pitcher, but hasn't really put the offense together. And then Ox really hasn't been on his game lately, but Ox is that guy that can somehow move up 5 or 6 spots even off his game.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see if these players pick up some more of those close wins that they can get. Flash has had the most misfortune, I think, so far in that category. But Palmab, like you stated, pitcher first, keeping games within that 2-run sort of window. So if that maturity in 93 batting comes for him, you'd have to think there's some danger there. All these players pushing for a playoff spot, wanting to be involved in that playoff picture. Ox in the best look right now at 500. And his season looking to start to be warming up. So interesting group here. Makes me think about who we could possibly see as we try to break into our top 10. And let's take a look here at that first top 10 spot. It's Wishbone staying right where he was last week, followed by Boops and the Bayside Colts taking a 2-spot drop to 11. And then Seaman actually jumping up 5 spots. He's been quietly doing his thing now at 4 and 6.
Yeah, Seaman has been impressive lately. A little bit of a slow start for Seaman, not really unexpected, moving into the obviously the big boys club, and all of a lot of XBL players moved down, so that that's kind of like even in AAA we had Snow and Joey move down. It makes it really hard, but he's done really well. Had a big split with, or maybe even I think he swept Ox. And then the Colts were on such a hot streak, kind of like Eddie had a really good start, have a little bit fallen on tough times, but have shown they can do some good things. And then of course Wishbone is really tough and a really tight pitcher. So Wishbone, I mean, 10 is good. I think Wishbone could possibly move up a few ranks.
Yeah, any of these players here could. I mean, I think we all felt like last week J Coops was on that trajectory to be swinging up a few ranks, but he's played a few tough games as of late. I think coming into week 3 and had a kind of a quiet week 2. But you see the 1-on-1 versus Civilization, nothing to shake a stick at. All players with a lot of danger. All these players within one game of 500. So tons of danger here. We'll move up to 7, 8, and 9. It's the Fuegos and Spluto making the appearance at 7, jumping up from rank number 11. Huge move up for Pseudo, followed by Pizza Volcano, who's moved down a spot, and Ted, who's slid down a spot as well.
Yeah, generally you kind of look at XBL just because of the level of the top players, and you kind of look at the lower half and say, well, they're not going to have a realistic chance against X or Y. Certainly, these three players could beat anybody, have beat anybody. Moon Kingdom was in the finals just last season. I don't know as much about the Fuegos, but has really put on a show. Has been super active in scrims. I don't think anybody wants to play the Fuegos. And then I'm a pretty big believer in Ted. I'm seeing some really good things out of the Dragoons. I was tempted to rank the Dragoons above Moon Kingdom, which is like really high. And I didn't. But regardless, it's interesting that they're right next to each other, just the way I had them.
Yeah, two players that I think can go either direction in this league. They're kind of like a benchmark point for where I think the line is in a way, for where it's make or break for playoffs. So you think both these players want to trend upward? Will they stay in that 500 direction? Going to be interesting to tell. We know Pseudo making huge improvements in his game, playing top teams close, trying to break out of that category, trying to break into the top 6, top 7, 8 conversation. And really just ensure that he's deeper in that playoff conversation, solidifying his spot. Interesting to see. He's 6 games above 500, so gonna have eyes on him going forward. We'll look at ranks 4, 5, and 6. Now coming up, we have the Birdies and Fleurbell picked up 2 wins against Ted last week in a quiet week, followed by the Civilization and Mama June, who had a split-worthy week so far, with a sweep versus Flash included, and then Weaver and the Beavers waking up, getting things moving again with games. He's 10 and 5. A couple of sweeps under his belt, but also getting swept by Luke and splitting a few series.
Yeah, I think 2 wins against Ted is not a quiet week for me. I'm a little surprised to see that people recognize that and move Fleurbell up into number 4. So good for Fleurbell. Well earned. Everybody's afraid of Mama, so nobody wants to play Mama. And then, to have Weaver at number 6 is just so ridiculous, but really has had some losses. I mean, just looking at the numbers. So, we know Weaver can beat anybody, so this is just kind of a pick 'em at this point.
Yeah, and anybody can really start losing to anybody as we get into this portion of it. And they have been. And I'm not sure Mike's prediction at the beginning of the season is going to be that far off the way things seem to be shaking out. The way a lot of these teams are accumulating losses. Yeah. We'll move on up now to our XBL top 3, the moment you've all been waiting for tonight for your power rankings. Let's see who the top 3 teams are across all leagues. And big shakeup as Mike jumps into the top 2 from number 4. Luke staying at number 1, proving himself this week with 6 more strong victories. And then Lazy still at rank number 3. But this is an interesting group. You have the undefeated Knaves making a name for himself.
Yeah, I think what's most surprising about this is the real debate would be, should Mike be number 1 or should Luke? It's not really whether Lazy should be number 2, just purely based on the sweep, and it was fairly convincing. There was a play by Mike, which we might have on later, I'm not sure, that I have won him game 2 against Lazy in a really tight late game situation. But yeah, obviously these 3, these are potential finalists and potential champions. You could say that for the top 6 at least. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really, really impressive top 3 group. I think the only thing setting the Knaves apart from a number 1 spot is probably a date with the Mallards. These two have to face off now. Luke's got all the counting stats, all the favor in his name, having just lost 2 big games early in the season, and that's really it. He's really just as good as 10-0. Mike's got to come out here and I think fight for the belt against old Luke. and we'll see who can take this number one power ranking spot. Because remember, there's 3 players below those two that are actually defending their own World Series titles. These two have never won a title. The 3 guys below them have. So I don't know. Go figure. This XBL stuff is getting kind of crazy. There's so much talent across this league, and just really excited where it's gonna keep, where it's gonna go from here, and keep turning up. I mean, this is probably the most exciting season in XBL history, and will have some of the most watch and most fun playoff games to catch. So we're already getting excited early here. We're in our week 2 roundup. Remember that? So really stoked. That'll do it now for our power rankings. Thank you, Mystery Man, for taking that through with us. That was a nice lengthy little segment. Now he and I are going to go over some box scores for you from the past week. A couple interesting ones here to kick us off, and this is our fun Oxbox Scores of the Week segment where we just highlight a few games. We started this last week if you weren't here, and just kind of talk about the course of those games and how it all went down, and interesting highlights from it. And the first one I think we have to talk about is the one that jumped off of everybody's screen after the big play last week. It's Ted versus Mama. Mama got stuffed on the 5-run, would have been 6-run comeback. Huge game between those two competitive and very close XBL players.
Yeah, Mama's a little bit like, he has that lazy gene where when you get him late in a game and you're up 4 to 5 to 6, you're not safe like you might be against some other players. And Mama almost laid it on Ted there. So that was just an absolutely fantastic game, and we'll see a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, huge close game in the XBL, and all wrapped up in 9 innings too. Love when you see those crazy things happen, all within the regulation time frame. Everybody just pressing to get it done without extra innings and just make it happen. It's pretty cool stuff. That kind of ties into our next one, where extra innings definitely was a thing. Ricks and Spliffstar in a really tight series played 2 extra inning games. This is the long one here. A 3-0 win for Ricks, scored 3 runs in the 14th to come away with the victory. The thing to highlight that Mystery Man and I talked about before the game was the fact that Spliffstar's pitchers in 2 losing efforts in extra innings in this series went more than 9 innings apiece.
Yeah, that's just completely absurd. You know, I don't know what to say. I mean, Spliffstar is pitching at an XBL level in the AAA, and that's always been kind of that's kind of usually been the thing that, kind of when Ox was in AAA, that's what kind of put him over the top, was that he was pitching at a different level, and could still hit a little bit. And so I think, in this game he didn't hit, but Spliffstar's not a terrible hitter. So I would definitely look at Spliffstar to finish strong this season, and next season, if he doesn't move up, would be a serious threat.
Yeah, really interesting series from those two. Another play, and Rick's on the flip side of that, a player that has come back to us quietly after a couple season hiatus and staking their own claim. Both of them, I think, 2 sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. So really interesting game.
Yeah, when you see, he didn't score any runs till the 14th inning, then scored. That's not that bad against Spliffstar.
Yeah, remember, he's only given up. If you can score 3, then you're probably bound to win, and Rick's pulled it off right there. So interesting stuff. It's funny how the stats kind of come to life in those moments. Move on now to a couple of big AA games to highlight in our box scores. These are just insane score lines. The first one for us, a win for the Mythosaurs and Mr. Clutch, coming in the clutch with an 8-run 8th inning after Noogle put up 4 on him in the top of the 8th to put himself up 11 to what would have been 11 to 4 at that time. I mean, wow, what a game between those two.
Yeah, and I think Noogle was winless at this point, but Mr. Clutch was smart enough to know that Mr. Clutch has his nose to the grindstone. He's paying attention, and he knew that he needed to grind here, and you see him grinding like you wouldn't believe late in that game, and pulled off just an absolutely epic W.
Yeah, huge game there in the AA. Noogle was fighting for that win. It's a shame for him, being a rookie, couldn't pull that off. But I mean, the Mythosaurs and Mr. Clutch on the flip side, also a rookie, probably feeling really good after one of his first most historic AA victories. Something we all got to go through. That's the rite of passage here in this league. You're going to be on the winning end and losing end of some of those, and they're definitely fun games to be a part of no matter what.
Yeah.
And speaking of one of those types of games, I mean, this next scoreline we have highlighted here from Runner and Embaria is just insane. I mean, what is this? 42 run game, 56 hits, two errors. So, you know, maybe one or two of those runs were unearned. And that all wrapped up in 9 innings. So, no mercy. It wasn't a mercy. It was a 10-run differential of 26-16. No mercy, folks. 9-inning game.
Yeah, earlier we talked about Runner and Snowbird possibly being pretty similar, but I think now we have to throw M. Barry in there, even if just based on this game and his other game against Runner, because M. Barry can really, I mean, he can definitely hit it at a AAA level. So once M. Barry tightens up that pitching, this is definitely a late playoff type of guy.
Yeah, both these players just putting up an alarming amount of runs over the course of their early AA careers. I want to see more and more of it. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see some score lines from them later on in the season that could be on this insane type of spectrum once more. I think our first Oxbox scores of the weeks did feature Runner and the Black Rose and the Snowbird. Yeah, that was another insane 1-run game with tons of runs. So seems to be a trend for the Envoy. We'll see if there's more of that.
We need to put the 3 of them in a steel cage and see who comes out.
Yeah, AA, no holds barred, all runs scored. Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to behold. Now we've got our top plays of the week here to tie off our show. This is the exciting portion we've been waiting for. And some really good submissions this week, some stuff for us to go over. And we'll start off with our number 5. This is a cannon arm play, something you love to see. This is Mers versus Ricks. Late in the game, in the 11th, Mers makes the diving play and then cannon arm double plays at first base to send himself to the top of the 12th in extras.
Yeah. I mean, not surprised to see a low-scoring game between these two. And Cannon. The best thing about cannon arm is it's so sneaky. You don't know who has it. I mean, typically, I don't like scout so heavy that I would see who has a cannon arm, and then you get burned.
Yeah, huge play from Mers there, coming up, rolling. I think the fun part of the play, too, is the barrel roll that this guy just pulls off right before that double play. So, nicely done in a clutch moment. You love to see that for our number 5 play of the week. Let's check out number 4. This is one from Rise and Dynasty. This is a first to steal, and then Rise is going to make some contact with the ball. And check out the shortstop here from Dynasty. Across the middle, doesn't quite catch it, picks it up, makes an amazing throw over to first base. I think we've all tried to make that dive with our shortstop and failed miserably many, many times. Probably everybody except Pseudo.
Yeah, that's that play that but second base and shortstop coming up with those types of plays is so deflating, and this was just such a crucial moment, and the big arm to boot.
Yeah, huge play. You got to start that dive really early, and you also have to have good fielding on that player to be able to accomplish that. So all tied together right there for Dynasty on the defense. Really cool number 4 play for us here. Number 3, this is a big one. Weaver in a close game versus Mama Junjun over the back shoulder. It's Boosie making the catch. What a play. Whipping the ball in there, making sure nobody moves. That kept it 1-0. I think we walked away with the win there.
Yeah, I mean, it's already King Kong versus Godzilla, and then you have a crazy-ass play floating into the right field corner that could completely change the game. It doesn't look like the fielder's going to come up with anything, and somehow comes up with the play sliding basically into the wall.
Yeah, big dive. And then also insult to injury, next hitter lines directly at the second baseman, making a jumping catch. Right place, right time. He didn't even have to move there.
That's kind of been how Mama's season's going, and he's still probably second in the standings. That tells you what Mama is.
Yeah, he's feeling the pain there, but I think it'll all come around for the kid. When you take it as bad as he's taken it so far, I think luck turns your way. So we'll be interesting to see the playoff run from the kid. Let's check out number 2. This was a big home run on match of the week from Ox here. Set up, waiting. You can see blows the save, contemplating. Runners on first. It's the top of the 11th. Ox tries to step out. He can't do it. He's going to take a couple pitches and set himself up with a pole shot, baby. Look at this thing. Doink.
Yeah, and you know nobody's going to be more excited about that than Ox on a match of the week. I mean, that will make his entire month.
Yeah, you've got the pinch perfect Indiana MF Hoosier just in the right spot at the right time. He saved the pinch hitter deep into extra innings, and it ended up working out. So huge play from Ox there. And I love the credit. Also, thank you all for highlighting the call there. It was a fun one. We love to see pull shots. There's a similar call off a different pull shot deep in the annals of XBL history. I know some of our old YouTube gang knows what I'm talking about. Let's check out the first play of the week, number 1, and this was the one we kind of alluded to. It's is more pain for poor Mama June on the receiving end, but Ted with the cannon arm in center field ends the game and the 6-run comeback. 3rd out, it's over. Wow. I mean, it all worked out there. Right place, right time for that player, and just unfortunate for Mama.
Yeah, it wasn't right. Everything about it was wrong. Everything about it was unfair. But the one saving factor was Ted hit really well in that game. I mean, I saw that game, the entire game, and Ted deserved that game. I mean, Mama's going to be Mama late, and you could say Mama should have won that game, but Ted didn't cheat him. Ted played a fantastic game there.
Yeah, huge play, huge win for Ted in a season, or in a week where his season was really looking to try and turn around. I think that if you look at it, that was Ted's first win of the season. So that's
Right.
got to be a massive confidence booster. When you're up against some really tough talent, trying to find your way and realize where you're at in that pack. So great game from those two. I mean, like we said earlier when we were talking about some of the box scores, you're on the receiving end and the giving end of some of these insane games, but that's what makes this crazy thing that we do all that more fun and just all that more historic and amazing. And that's why we keep track of it, and we've been doing it for years. I mean, it's awesome stuff. This is where history is made. So yeah, that'll do it here tonight for our weekly roundup. Really exciting content. I'm Mystery Man. It was a pleasure to go through all of this with you. I mean, before we leave here tonight, you got anything to top us off?
I just want to thank the league office for all the work they put into putting this incredible, unique league together. I mean, there's nothing like it in the SMB world. I think there's probably not much like it really anywhere. The excitement we've seen, the fact that we got double A going again this season, the fact that the new game, despite some server issues, has been, up to expectations. I'm just so excited for the league and really the players. I just love working with the players and doing the announcing, and just it's so much fun.
Thank you, Mystery Man. Much appreciated, from our end to yours. And it's a pleasure to be able to work on this and do this with you all. Sorry sometimes that things get pushed back and life gets in the way, but always happy to set the time aside and do this with you guys so that we can really, again, make history here and make this something that's ours. And I think that's what makes it fun and unique for all of us, and that's why we're going to continue doing it each and every week. And we're going to see you on Match of the Week later this week and beyond. Really exciting games on our deck. We're going to keep getting those scheduled, so stay tuned for that. And get your games in, get your screenshots right. Don't take them with a potato or your flip phone. Get them in there. And yeah, everybody, thank you all for being here tonight. It was a pleasure once again, and we will see you next time.
All right, thanks, fans.